Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop. Is the 4-prong drive center that came with your lathe what you should be using? Perhaps not, as I'll explain in this video as we explore the different options. Let's start our discussion with a trusty 4-prong drive that comes with your lathe. Depending on the size of the lathe, if it's a mini lathe, it's probably one that looks like this that came with my jet. That's a 1014. Came with my 1014 jet. And it's 7/8 of an inch across. This is the one that came with my larger Powermatic, the full-size 3520, and it's 1 inch across. One option for mounting a 4 drive is putting in an angle block, putting it on your bandsaw, and cutting. Cutting the slots that way on a bandsaw does make it easy to mount, in that the prongs go right into the slots. And that might be okay if you're doing production work on large balusters where you just find it easier to run a bunch of these through the bandsaw. But for your typical project, that's an unnecessary step and not an approach you would normally use. The one you'd normally use is the one I'm going to show you. The most common way of doing it's going to be pounding in with a mallet after you mark centers. I like to use this pencil approach. Get you a small target. And then you're going to line up your prongs the same way. If you cut them, you're going from corner to corner with your prongs. So all 4 of them will cut across in grain. You're going to put it in that slot you measured with the prongs lined up corner to corner. And you're going to smack it with a mallet until those bite in. You can mount it this way. If it comes loose, you're still going to have these indentations that make it easy to line up on the lathe. What you don't ever want to do is use a steel hammer to tap these in, because you can mushroom over the bottom of your Morse tapers and cause damage. One of the things that may cause you to either reconsider or looking at extra options besides your 4-prong chuck is that maybe you do a lot of small work like I do, and if yours is a 1 inch, it's just too big. Now there are alternatives with 4-prong chucks. You could get one that's maybe I think this is this one by Record Power is, I believe, 16 millimeter, and they have a larger 7/8 inch. But and then this one by Retour, which is, I believe, 9 millimeter 4-prong. This might be an option for small work. 4-prong without a movable point. And once you mark center with a spring punch or a awl and get it centered, you can bring up enough tailstock pressure to drive it in without any effort on a mini lathe. As we showed, a 4-prong does do better on spindle stock than a 2-prong, because a 2-prong, when you put it in, tends to act like a splitting wedge. However, when it comes to rough turning a large bowl blank, I find the 2-prong center aligned with the grain. Well, you can see that I've marked the direction of the grain. Tends to bite in. It won't split on a large blank, but it will bite into the grain. If you try to do a cross grain, you're gonna struggle getting it to bite. So you're gonna put it in cross grain, or rather with the grain. And again, you might be successful in mounting it with this thing, on there. Chances are it's going to come loose, but you've got the prong marks to get it reoriented when you bring up your tailstock. Regardless of which type of drive you're going to be using, you want to clean off the debris that can get caught in the teeth that'll interfere with it biting. So just take a toothbrush and clean a little bit. Another advantage of the 2-prong on bowls is it's easier to fit it into an uneven surface, where if you get a 4-prong, you're going to have a little bit of a struggle. Let's do a quick comparison of how easy it is to drive in a 2-prong versus a 4-prong on a blank. This is going to be rather unscientific, so we're just going to take this, and we're going to say 1, and it holds, but it didn't mark it very well. Let's line up. Back in. 2, 3. 3 looks like it's got pretty good indentation. and I think it's going to take about the same amount of effort to do a two-prong lined up with grain. 1, 2, actually, yeah, about 3 strikes. Didn't seem like it's a big difference in effort. While not something you have to do often, keep in mind on these 2-prong and 4-prong drive centers that they can be damaged if you drop them. The edges can get dull from use, so you may need to sharpen them to make them easier to use. Now, I found this to be very difficult on a grinder. To me, the easiest way is to take a coarse diamond hone and just get the flat area. Mostly you're getting rid of the damage or any burrs or rounded over steel, so it shouldn't take long to take care of it. Now let me mention, of course, you can take any 4-prong chuck and take it over to your grinder and make it into a 2-prong chuck if you find that 2 prongs suit you better. Now, another option that I had never seen or heard of before until Record Power is nice enough to send me some samples are the 6-prong drive centers that they offer, and I understand that Axminster also offers something similar. They come in different sizes, 5/8, 7/8, and 1 1/4. Now let's see how difficult it is to hammer one of these in. So we're going to take the 7/8. The others we use were 1 inch as a sample, but this ought to be pretty close. And we go 1, 2, and I definitely see it marked, but you can see it doesn't stick in. And frankly, I'm not sure if that's enough registration. I would want it a better registration. So it's going to take at least, looks like it's going to still take three strikes for any of these. Now, Record Power says that they're similar to the 4-prong, but they're easier to seat on dense hardwood and larger pieces. The 6-prong bites better into green wood, and you can tap it in with a soft mallet. Although I wasn't, especially enthralled with them for green bowl blanks, I suspect they probably would do very well in lieu of a 4-prong if you're talking about spindle blanks. Let's try it on end grain. Again, similar to the others, you need to have an even surface. So we're going to strike it 1, 2, and I think two is going to hold it. So it is easier to put it in for spindle blank. So I think if you do a lot of spindle work, this could be a good option if you don't mind hammering it in with a mallet. This is not an infomercial on Record Power, but I think I do want to acknowledge I do have a number of Record Power pieces of equipment, and I have not been disappointed with any of them, whether they're drive centers, live centers, my CamVac dust extractor, the various chucks I have, and some turning tools. So the next thing I want to talk about is these multi-tooth drive centers. I've got a couple of Robert Sorby's, the 1/2 inch and the 7/8. The other manufacturers, such as Record Power, Axminster, I think call them multi-tooth. These are kind of equivalent, and I've been very happy with the Robert Sorby's. They were not cheap. I think I got both of them used. But I'd have to say, now that I've been using the Record Power ones, I find no difference whatsoever in quality. And actually, there's one feature on the Record Power ones that I think is worth noting, and it's got an Allen wrench adjustment, so you can actually adjust the spring tension on their the ones that have springs. Now, one of the key advantages I think of the multi-tooth is that you do not have to hammer them in with a mallet. You can, because of the number of teeth, and especially with the spring-loaded ones, you can just tighten them up on with your tailstock, even on a mini lathe, and secure it very well. Another advantage over especially 2-prong chucks is that you're not going to split the timber. Another advantage of these multi-tooth is if you do a lot of split turning where you're gluing pieces of wood and you're mounting this on the seam, by having the spring tension, you can it keeps from driving it in, and the teeth can grab on both sides of that glue joint and not separate your work. So that they provide a fantastic grip to paper joint wood blanks. The other advantage of using a STEB spring-loaded multi-tooth type of center is for production turners. So let me show you how they can be used. You might be turning, and then you want to stop and examine it. And instead of turning the lathe off, all you would do is just back off the tailstock. The spring gets pushed out, and then you can examine your work. Everything's still running, and then just tighten it up again. I don't do a lot of production work. That's not something that I'd feel comfortable doing on a regular basis. I would rather just turn the lathe off, but that's me. Now, one of the requirements of having using a multi-tooth type center is that the end has to be trued, because otherwise you're not going to get all the teeth engaged, as you can see from this blank. So you got options in the marketplace, and I just want to reiterate, you generally get what you pay for, and quality costs. So let me give you some examples. So superficially, this one and this one, or I can throw in the Robert Sorby, they all look very, very similar, but quality-wise, I've never heard any complaints on the Robert Sorby or the Record Power, or for that matter, Axminster multi-tooth centers. The cheaper ones, made in China, whether you call it Apprentice or Wood River or No Name off Amazon, like these, I started with this because it was so much cheaper. It was less than a third of the cost of a Robert Sorby. So I thought, how much difference can there be? Well, there is. If you're a weekend turner, this may meet your needs, but I've got to point out, the way this is mounted, it's got a set screw in here, and if it comes loose, you're going to have nothing but problems with it for the rest of its useful life. I've had a lot of experience with these because we bought a number of these for my club, so we use them every week, and they are expendable, consumable, so to speak. So we couldn't afford the price of far more expensive quality ones, and this gets it done for us, using these once a month for smaller spindle projects. But we have had these come loose, and once they do, it's a challenge. I can also say that the teeth have not held up nearly as well on these as the more expensive Robert Sorby that I've had a lot of experience with. So they've got a lesser quality alloy. One of the things that I like, and this is probably a better comparison, is the Record Power and the Robert Sorby, is the Record Power appears to be just as well made, but at a little cheaper price point. And one of the things that it also has is this Allen adjustable tension on the spring. In addition, they do offer a set of multi-tooth ones that do not have the spring at a little cheaper price point if you don't need the spring on it. Here's another example of a quality difference between two that superficially look to be about the same size and same functionality. The difference is this one from Record Power, the 1 1/4, has the adjustable tension. The screw is not going to come out. Where the cheaper one, No Name from China, if you just pull on this, you can see the whole assembly come out, how easy it is to lose. How tight is tight? How tight should it be? My suggestion is to grasp the wood and turn the hand wheel, and if you can easily move it, it's not tight enough. So maybe you can crank down a little bit more, and that's enough. And on this tiny little rotor with 4 prongs, it didn't take a whole lot of tailstock turning on the hand wheel to get it that it's snug enough. I can obviously twist this thing because I'm strong enough to do that, but it doesn't have to be that strong. Speed's going to be your friend. So on small turnings, you're going to be turning fast. So that's plenty snug. Now a similar but different, but a small size one that would be used for similar projects is this 10mm record power multi-tooth, and let's just see how difficult that is. I use a spring punch, and it comes in a sprung and unsprung. Actually, this one is the unsprung, so let me see which is going to be closer in match. So let's see how much effort that takes to get it that small distance. The point protrudes a little bit more, but with this Powermatic, I didn't have any problem at all. Now, I've got a little bit of looseness, probably good enough. So let's just tighten it just a little bit more, and I think that'll probably do it. So let's check it out. You can see that the live center points extend out approximately 3mm or 1/8 of an inch compared to this 1/8 inch parting tool. Longer than that, and it becomes very difficult to use without drilling a hole, so I had to modify the pin that was on my Laguna drive center in order to grind it off a little bit. I did a little video on that. You can click above if you're interested. So turning at a speed appropriate for this small project. In this case, close to 3,000. Light pressure. I don't feel any slippage whatsoever. Here's a comparison of the 10mm record power sprung and unsprung. You can see that they look virtually identical. The unsprung one, actually, I find the shape a little bit preferable because I think you got a little more room in here if you were getting up close to something small, but it wouldn't be significant because this curve allows you to get in there as well. If you don't need the advantages of a spring-loaded one, I would say for this small one, the inexpensive, the one without the spring is a little bit cheaper. So you could save you a couple of bucks. I like the sprung versions though because I think they're easier to tighten. And let's just show you. So we take this same block of wood we used before. Bring up support. And it takes no effort whatsoever to tighten this up to get this to lock, and with those multi points it seems to hold very well. So certainly the advantage of the sprung, you never need to use a mallet versus a 2-prong or 4-prong or 6 prong, and it's going to hold up very well. If you do a lot of small work, those small drive centers can be very helpful. And that holds it secure. I didn't get it perfectly centered, but I can get close. I can't, with something this small, I can't get quite up to the edge, but this would be very appropriate for turning something small, much more so than, say, a larger one that you couldn't even get the teeth mounted on. Technitool and Record Power both have an auxiliary drive center that mounts in the chuck. The advantage of that, theoretically, is that you can size the tenon by just evaluating the closeness of the jaws. I don't like it for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't like to be turning that close to the jaws, and I think it's a terrible idea for beginners. The second reason is they're very difficult to use. Let me show you why that is. First of all, we said before on the typical drive center, the pin is sticking out about 3 millimeters. In this case, it's closer to 4 plus millimeters. And as a result, if you look at the size of that, you can see that the base is larger than I would use on an awl. So you've almost got to drill a hole in order to engage this, unless you're going to hammer it in off the lathe, which is an awful lot of trouble. It's a reason why I tend to use a multi-tooth center. Now, in addition, they also have steb type multi-tooth centers that mount. You've got inexpensive ones, and then you got more expensive ones. But again, that removes the issue of, since if they're spring loaded, the issue that I have with this one, but it doesn't eliminate the problem of turning so close to the chuck, especially if you are a novice turner, turning that tenon close to these chuck jaws. Okay, we've covered a lot of information, but now let's cut to the chase. I want to tell you what I recommend. Let me tell you, this is not a universal truth. This is based on my opinion and my preferences, and a lot of this is opinion and preferences. But I would say if you're turning a lot of large spindles, balusters, and the like, then you're going to want to stick with either your 4-prong chuck that you've already got, or if you were doing it and hammer it in, or if you were doing a lot of it, I would certainly consider the steb center with the spring loaded point to make it real easy to mount and just crank up on the lathe without having to hammer it in. Now, if you're doing bowls, then the 4-prong, as we pointed out, is not the best option. I think the 2-drive is a lot better. So you can either go out and buy a 2-drive, or you can take a 4-drive and, like I mentioned before, grind the two teeth off. Both of those are options. For the smaller work that I typically do, or do a lot of in terms of ornaments and boxes and things like that, then I really like the spring-loaded multi-tooth or steb center. And either the 1/2 inch, 5/8, or 7/8 inch, depends on your preference and what's available. They'd all be good. For very small spindles, I would use any one of these three types, either the sprung or the unsprung. I think either one of them going to work fine, because you're not going to normally stop and check your work, so you don't necessarily get a real advantage of the spring-loaded one, I don't think, on things this small. Or you can use something like that Rotor 4-prong tooth that's very small. I think any of those would be a good option for you.